and welcome back to The Surgical Sewist. I'm Marissa McHugh. Today we're going to finish up our aorta coaster. So if you don't know what I'm talking about and this is your first time, I will link the first video below. For everybody else, let's get moving. The first thing that we have to do is take out all those papers. One section at a time, peel the seam allowance, so the fabric that folds over the paper, off the paper. Then peel up the piece of paper itself. If the paper gets ripped, it doesn't matter because you're done with it. You don't have to be very careful about the pieces that are right next to a seam, but if you're extremely rough with them, you could break your stitches. So be a little bit careful. So now just take all the papers out so that there are no papers left inside your piece. Grab a piece of batting. This should be 4.5 by 4.5 inches square. Now, put your project on top of the batting. Flip it over and center the batting. Use your glue stick to glue down your project onto the batting. I do this 1/2 at a time so that I know it stays centered. It doesn't have to be perfect. If the edges aren't quite unraveled from your paper piecing, then you just want to undo them and make sure that the edges stick down. Now flip it over and use your scissors to cut your front project so that it's exactly the same size as your batting. Again, this should be a 4.5 by 4.5 inch square. Next, grab a piece of fabric for the backing. This should be 6 inches by 6 inches square, and it's also going to be the binding, so you want it to be a color that looks good from the front. Center your project, which is already attached to your batting, and glue it onto the backing fabric. Now it's time to quilt your project. The verb quilt actually means to sew all 3 pieces together. Take your needle with thread that's knotted at the end and bring it from the inside batting to the outside of your project. This allows you to hide your knot on the inside and it'll get covered later. To quilt, just go up and down through the entire 3 layers. The 3 layers here are called a quilt sandwich, by the way. All you have to do is go up and down through all 3 layers. Friendly reminder that the goal is not for this to look perfect. If you wanted this to look like a machine did it, you would just do it on a machine. Traditionally, we quilt with a running stitch, which is this pattern, but it really doesn't matter what type of stitch you use. It doesn't matter how big the stitches are, it doesn't matter how far apart they are, it's whatever you want. If you're wondering if there's a more efficient way to do it, this is how most people hand quilt when they're quilting large areas. It's all from the front, and I'll link some videos below if you want to see some real professionals do it super fast. Quilt as much or as little as you'd like. The density, as we call it, is completely up to you. When you're done with one thread, you could bury the knot like this. Hold tension on your thread and twist it twice around your needle. Then take a stitch from where your thread comes out of the fabric through just the backing and the batting and pull through. Again, this doesn't go through the front fabric. When you pull that tight, you can see that it makes a little knot. And if you hold your fabric and pull, that knot will go inside where the batting is and be hidden. Now you can just clip your thread close to the fabric and it's gone. Now all you have to do is finish the edges. This is called binding. Put some glue on the border of your fabric here, and then fold the red fabric over until it meets the white. Now fold it one more time so that that binding fabric goes up on top of the project. Put a clip there to hold it if the glue isn't enough. Now, take your thread and again start inside so that your knot goes into the batting. Come out through the white fabric, but also through the red binding, right on the edge. This is an invisible stitch. Each stitch, you're going to take a small bite of the white fabric and then a small bite of the red edge binding. White, and then come out through the edge of the binding. So you take a piece of your project and then just the edge of the binding edge. When you get to a corner, fold it up 90 degrees like you're wrapping a present. Then do the fold up to meet and one more time fold up over just like you did before. That should make a nice little pointed triangular corner. We call this a mitered corner. Sometimes you need something a little bit sharp to make that corner on the side. And here you use the same stitch to stitch that down. So you're going to stitch the back fabric and then a little bit of the top. I stitch out towards the end of the corner and then back towards the middle of the project again. Not because you need that for strength, but because making a knot and then putting a new thread and starting it would be annoying. When you get back to the middle again, just start again, taking a bite of the project and a small bite of the edge of the binding. When you go around the whole project, you have finished. Use the same trick we talked about earlier to bury your knot at the end. So that's it. You did it. You made your first quilt, a tiny aorta quilt. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope this activity allowed you to refocus your energy, at least for a little while. If you enjoyed this project, subscribe to the channel because we're going to be doing more meditative crafting in the future. I hope to see you next time on The Surgical Sewist.